Morning freaks, Saturday morning. Hopefully you're all bloody on the grind today. God, it never stops, does it? Anyways, I just mainlined like 300 grams of protein, half of it in my mouth, the other half in my veins. If you know, you know. Now earlier in the week, I think it was Monday, I don't even know at this point, I've posted so much crap lately. I was talking about how to not get fat whilst running, and I talked a little bit, or had a little bit of a rant about protein, because it's basically like the zone 2 of nutrition. It's just constant droning of get your protein in, get your protein in. You want to get leaner? Protein. You want to get bulkier? Protein. You want to get faster? Protein. You want to lose fat? Protein. You want to gain fat? Protein. Everything is solved with protein. Oh, and I got this comment. There is no research on protein, ? Bro, what are you smoking? Stick to the running and don't spread complete nonsense like this video. Okay, let's break it down. Like, here's the thing, just like zone 2, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I think it just gets talked about way too much, just like protein. I think protein has its place, and I actually take it right now for a very specific reason. But the real question that I want to answer today is, what does the evidence actually say as to how much protein runners actually need, and when, and why, and how, and who? Who's you? Let's figure it out. How much protein are you getting each day, huh? Okay, so let's break this down. So all of the recommendations and the evidence seems to suggest that normal people need around 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight per day in their diet. So for me, being around 70 kilos, that's around 70 grams for a normal person. And this is based on evidence talking about nitrogen balances in the body and replacing the breakdown of protein with intake of protein, because that's what this is all about. And so the goal for most runners should be to maintain muscle mass by putting in enough protein as you are breaking down. And the contention really comes in how much protein actually gets broken down. If we think about it logically, it's going to be a little bit more than 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight per day. But how much more, and how do we know? So before we go even further, I'm just going to give you my opinion, okay? I actually think that what you should do is actually focus on eating more food in general than eating more protein, because if you just increase how much food that you're eating with carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, just bumping up your general eating habits, you're going to get in more than you were previously. And so say, for example, if you're going from a sedentary lifestyle to running, of course you're going to eat more protein because you're going to be eating more food because you're doing more running, unless you're starving yourself like a little 5-year-old child. Does that make sense? Now, what we need to do is find high quality evidence. There's no point just looking at one particular study when we can actually look at a review of studies called a meta-analysis or a systematic literature review. What that means is that they spend a lot of time getting all of the different data points from each particular study and putting them together into one big data set so that we can get a better idea as to what's actually going on, and not just relying on one particular random study. But just before we get into that, I'm going to actually look at one of the most popular studies that I could find that came up right at the top of Google, okay? Okay, new package, shipping label printer, essential, but that problem's for another day. Okay, we're completely off track. Okay, so let's look at this first meta-analysis. So the name is The Effect of Protein Intake on Athletic Performance, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. So as you can see, this review is pretty recent because it came out in 2024, which is last year. And so what they found was the typical recommendations for endurance athletes are around 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. And for strength athletes, around 1.6 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram, 1.6 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. But they did say one thing very interesting at the end of this study. Although athletes may need more protein to supplement energy, the effect of protein intake on athletic performance is still debatable. Debatable. And I guess another thing that they said in this study is, however, the ergogenic aid of protein observed in studies on isocarbohydrates might be due to the general effect of adding calories rather than specific benefit of protein. Before drawing a clear conclusion, further research is necessary. So let's see this study. Okay, so they're referencing this SLR from 2010. Let's check that out. Sorry, my apologies. It actually came out in 2013. I just can't fucking read. Here's what they actually found. When carbohydrates are delivered at optimal rates during or after endurance exercise, protein supplements appear to have no direct endurance performance enhancing effect. Okay, so that's 2 systematic literature reviews that say that protein really doesn't matter, and all you have to do is fuel during your workouts and then continue to maintain that fuel load throughout the rest of the day, whatever that ends up being. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's look at another meta-analysis. Now, this is all well and good, and from what I can find, it does seem to suggest that protein doesn't make much of a difference. But there is one study that I've found that is also an SLR and a meta-analysis that thinks that protein supplementation increases adaptations to endurance training. But the only problem is that I can't find the article. It won't let me get in unless I pay for it. And why the hell would I want to pay for one singular article? It's this one right here. Oh, actually, it looks like I found it. Yes! Awesome! Oh, wait, just kidding. No, we can't. For God's sake, man. Like, I literally can't even look at the figures because when I do, it just throws me back to the get full text now. Far out. Now, this one that I can't actually see because it's behind a paywall, I kind of think that what's happened here is that they've added protein into someone's diet and got an effect from it, probably because they increased their calories so they can do more work. I would guess that this relative amount of protein that you get in would just increase as you eat more food, and therefore you would get better recovery in. Like, for example, Tour de France riders, they're getting like 900 grams of protein in per day, but they're also getting in 6,000 calories per day because they're doing 6-hour, 7-hour training rides for months on end. Of course, they're going to be getting in that much protein because they have a lot of breakdown of the body. You going on your 30, 40-minute training run probably only need an extra 0.2 grams of protein per kilograms of body weight or whatever compared to the standard one because you're not putting a great deal of load on your body. Now, I do actually think that there's a couple of population groups where adding in extra protein is going to be quite beneficial. The first being elderly athletes that are starting to get on a little bit, like over the age of 45, 50. What tends to happen is that once you get to that age, maybe your testosterone starts to drop a little bit and you start to lose lean muscle mass over time unless you actually address it. And the way that you can address it is with doing resistance training, continuing running, but also adding in more protein foods. I can concede with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Another scenario in which I think it would be really beneficial would be for the runner who is not actually running a great deal right now, maybe doing some rehab like myself when I'm just strength training 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and really, building up that muscle strength. It's going to cause a little bit more damage than just regular running. So I have been adding in extra protein and being a little bit more conscious about that. But for the average runner, really, all you have to do is just continue eating good, nutritious foods. And by increasing your caloric intake to match with your running output, you're going to be just fine. But I want to see what you guys actually think in the comments below. Let me know what your opinions are and if you've read these articles before and things like that. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.